Good day and welcome to Parent Quick Smarts. Today's episode is on understanding area. This topic is from Grade 3, Unit 13. Back when you were in school, you may have learned about area by having our teacher stand up at the front of the room and describe that we find the area of a figure by multiplying length times width. You may have even gotten the abridged version, simply area equals L times W. It was then that we took those formulas, we looked at rectangles with their dimensions, started multiplying the dimensions, and found the area of the rectangle. Your children, in third grade, will be learning about area over the course of multiple days. The first thing that they'll learn is they'll learn the meaning of the term area before learning the formula. They'll also learn different strategies for finding the area of a figure before moving towards learning the formula. But eventually, by the end of our topic, they will make sense of and learn the formula for finding area. All good lessons begin with a challenging problem, and your child's teacher might start with a problem like this. Providing a number of different shapes, we've got 4 different colored rectangles here, and asking the students to place the shapes in order from the figure that covers the largest surface to the figure that covers the smallest amount of surface. The students would be allowed to cut or fold, but they would not be allowed any type of measuring tool at this point, like rulers, tape measures, etc. The children are encouraged to discuss strategies as they order their shapes. When they first look at the shapes, the kids will probably start to see, well, first of all, the red rectangle and the green rectangle are definitely bigger than the purple and the orange. But I'm not quite sure between the red and the green and between the purple and the orange which one's bigger. They may try overlaying the shapes or folding the shapes to see if they can get a closer read on which one is larger. They might begin to notice that as they overlay the red shape on top of the green shape, that a little bit of the red rectangle kind of hangs off the top. And since they're allowed to cut, they might decide, hey, if I cut this little piece off the top, and then I cut that piece in 2, I can overlay that right over the top of the green rectangle, and I can see that although it's pretty close, the green rectangle actually takes up more flat space than the red rectangle does, because I can see that little green section in the upper right hand corner that's not covered by part of the red rectangle. It's at this point that students begin to recognize area as an attribute of plane figures like these rectangles, and they understand the concept of area measurement, that area is the amount of flat two-dimensional space that is covered by a figure. Another strategy students use to compare the rectangles is using unit squares. You can see some color tiles above the orange square and the purple rectangle. The teacher will provide the students with 10 color tiles and ask them to use these color tiles to see if they can more precisely tell which it covers the largest area, the orange square or the purple rectangle. We can see that when we cover the orange square, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 square units that cover up the orange square, so the orange square has an area of 9 square units. The purple rectangle, however, has an area of 8 square units. This gives the kids a more precise measure of area, and they learn to find out that area is measured in square units. The orange square has a larger area because it has 9 square units versus the purple rectangle with only 8 square units. When they take that same idea to the larger green rectangle, remember they only had 10 color tiles, they realize, wait a minute, I can't cover this whole thing with only 10 color tiles. So the students have to do some quick thinking and decide, well, I know though that this looks like 1 row of 5 here, and I could go ahead and use my pencil and I could fill in the other areas where the squares would be, and I can count up either the tiles or the squares that I drew in to still determine the area of this particular rectangle. It's through experiences with the color tiles that make students ready to answer questions like these, where they're asked to find the area of a gridded shape. Let's go back to that green rectangle for a moment. We remember that we had 5 units going across the top of that rectangle. As the students look at that row, they can see one row of 5. They look at the second row and think, well, wait a minute, there's a second row of 5, and with the markings that I put in, I can clearly see a third row of 5. That's 3 rows of 5. Earlier in the school year, they learned that 3 rows of 5 can also be said as 3 times 5 or 3 groups of 5, and they know that 3 times 5 equals 15. So the area of this green rectangle would be 15 square units. This is where students begin to develop the understanding that the formula for finding area of a rectangular figure is length times width. It is after experiences like that that students will be able to answer questions like these out of their Go Math book. Here are some great questions to ask your children as they progress through their lessons on area. How can you find the area of a figure when you do not have enough color tiles? How does the concept of multiplication connect to area? And as our children are learning about different strategies for finding the area of a figure, it is important for them to evaluate those strategies and always look for the strategy that's going to get them to finding their answer most efficiently and accurately. That's why it's important to ask questions like this. Bruce drew a grid on his rectangle and counted the number of squares to find the area. Molly found the length and width of the rectangle using color tiles and then multiplied to find the area. Whose strategy is best? Explain your thinking. We want students to realize that although they can find the area by simply counting up the number of grid squares that a figure is covered with, it may be more efficient and accurate to use the formula for area that they discovered. Area equals length times width. It is important for any math concept that we make that math concept real for children. We want them to see how they can utilize area or any other math concept in the real world. Just taking a look at this picture of this kitchen, you can see how many different times the developer of this kitchen had to think about finding the area. When putting up these blinds, they had to decide what's the area of the windows that we want to cover. When looking at the counter, we can think, well, what's the area of the space there that's available to lay out the bread and the glasses and that vase with the pretty flowers? Point out other real-life situations for your children where we use area. Carpeting or tiling a floor. Measuring a field for the next soccer game. Or laying down foam mats for children to play on. Thank you for joining us today on Parent Quick Smarts. Remember, the best way to support your child's education is to keep in communication with your child's teacher. Until next time, take a look at these websites, thinkcentral.com and elementarymath.mysdhc.org. See you next episode.